Hello, and thank you for joining us today in another interview in our History Behind the Art series. Today, you will meet Florence Riggs, Diné textile weaver. Florence began to weave pictorials when she was 20 and has now become a full-time weaver. I am Melissa Ojeda, the Marketing and Public Relations Manager for Grand Canyon Conservancy, the official nonprofit partner of Grand Canyon National Park. And the History Behind the Art series was created to keep you connected to Grand Canyon and provide you an in-depth look at the cultural demonstration program at Grand Canyon National Park. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you today Grace Lilly, Cultural Demonstrator Program Coordinator.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. We have the pleasure of talking with Florence Riggs, a Diné master weaver, joining us from her home in Tuba City in northern Arizona. Florence has been a teacher of weaving and dyeing wool at the Diné College in Tuba City. Thank you so much for joining us today, Florence.
Hello, everyone that's listening to this Zoom.
Well, thank you, Florence. Can you share a little bit about yourself and what drew you into weaving as a career?
Well, back when I was, after I got out of high school, I had a child and I didn't want to leave my baby with my mom to go on to school. She was learning the pictorial from Linda Nez at the time. So I got interested and she taught me the basics of weaving. And my first rug was a 2 gray heel that my oldest brother bought from me. And from then on, I learned the pictorial. And as the years went by, I didn't realize that it would take me this far. And it has really sustained our family with raising my kids, weaving rugs and selling them and providing food and clothing and things like that for my family for all these years. And it still does for us.
Thank you so much for sharing, Florence, that it's been such a way to take care of your family. Was there a reason that you chose weaving to make your livelihood instead of other options that might have been available to you?
Well, it got interesting because my selling to my brother, it brought money. And then the creation of, the learning of creation that came with it, and just learning the different techniques, and it made it very interesting and to run with it on my own, because my mother, my sisters, and my brother, they weave too, but they have their own designs and their own techniques and their own style of weaving. So we all have our own vision for our pictorials and our traditional designs.
I love the one that is just to the side of you. Can you tell us a little bit about the piece that you're working on?
The piece that's here is it's a vest, literally, it's a vest. That's the back side of the vest. It's going to be a pictorial vest. It's a commission order from Phoenix right now.
That's amazing. It's so unique how many different ways you can create weaving. Do you want to walk us through a little bit about the processes that it takes to create a woven piece from start to finish, and maybe talk about the materials and the tools that you'll use?
Okay, I don't really have all the tools, but from using the raw wool, I'll show you the technique of the carding. This is the hand carding material that the Navajos use. So what you do is just put the wool here like this, just to demonstrate. And then you just brush it in like this. And then you get all as you keep doing this, as you can see, the dirt off of it comes off the wool, and then it cleans it. And you keep doing this and doing this until it gets really smooth. And then it'll come out like this. And then what you do is you get the hand spindle. You kind of just break it a little bit. And the more you spin it, the skinnier it gets to where you want it. That's the process of the start of the wool, of the weave. Just kind of just spread it out like this. This would be from the raw material of wool, but a lot of times I just buy it from the store, and then sometimes we use the vegetable dye to make a little bit different colors, like I have here. These are all coming from different. This is coming from a fresh tumbleweed. It's kind of greenish color. This one comes from sage, and this one comes from they call it Navajo tea or wild tea. That's the process. And then I have the warp here. And then with this is the warp cord, you call it right here. It's right here, right here. This thing that's right here. So you have to spin it with the hand spindle, and you make those cords. And then when you do the warp, you have to make sure you get every inch, every loop. Then you twist it in every loop to get all of it together. And this cord keeps the rug together after it's finished.
Thank you for showing those steps, Florence. That looks like a lot of hard work to get all of that done. And so you've got your loom set up with the warp, and then you start weaving with the different colors that you've created. And how long does it typically take you to create a woven piece?
It depends on the size and the design, the intricate of the design. So with a pictorial like this, with all the small detail that you have to put in, like with the necklace and all that, with all this, you have to go slow to make sure you try to shape it and look like it as natural as you possibly can. Like for here, this is like a concho belt. And then right here's the hammer that the silversmith is using and making the jewelry. So you have to make sure that even the fingers here, the detail of it is all, try to make it all the same. So this takes months and months to do on pictorials. And then the size of your warp, not your warp, but your wool strings. So the finer the string, the more time you have to work, because it's going to build up very, very slow if it's fine.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of dedication and patience to make a piece like that if it takes months. So I'm proud of you for all of that hard work. That's amazing. Florence, would you like to share just a little bit about the history of Diné weaving?
The history of Diné weaving, in the Navajo culture, they talk about Spider Woman and Spider Man. They're the ones that showed the Navajo ladies to learn how to weave and how to do all these spindles. Even these, the warp strings, they have stories to even how it's put together. They all have stories, and the design all have stories with, you know, the lightning and all that. You know, even the shed stick and the heddle stick, even these tools that we use, they all have stories. Even the loom setup of how it's set up, and there's reasons of how the horizontal looms and all that, they all have a story. If I could share that, it would take probably a lot of time to share the story of the Spider-Man and Spider-Woman, but they're the ones in the cultural, they taught the Navajo ladies how to do all this. And the reason why, there's even a reason why we put them yarn into a ball. So that's one of the things that pertains to the cultural story.
Wow, I can imagine that that's stories that you share as you weave together with someone, I'm sure.
That's what I taught when I taught in classes I had to include all the cultures behind it and the taboos and all that. I had to tell and teach. And then during the times that I taught, if there was a storm, I would tell my students to just leave their tools and not touch their weavings for that time, that we would just sit in the classroom and we would just share different stories or what they wanted. If they had questions, we would just sit down and talk about things like that. So there's a lot of taboos and things cultural wise that I had to share with them. And we had to practice that too during the times that I taught at the Diné College.
That's amazing. I'm glad that you're able to share these traditions to the next generation, and hopefully they'll continue to be passed down as they have for centuries. So thank you so much for being a teacher and sharing those. Would you like to share a little bit about how Grand Canyon is a special place to the Diné people?
Well, like I was talking about, the confluence where the Little Colorado River and the Colorado River meet. That's a very special place for the Diné people, and the emergement of the going into the fourth world in their the cultural story of how they came into this world. So that's one of the very special places there. And then one thing that I realized that I pick piñons, and that's where piñons is very a good. The Navajos have always picked piñons, and they store it for their winter eating, I guess. And it's been done for a long time. So this I picked in Grand Canyon area just to show that this piñons is kind of something pertaining to the Navajos with the Grand Canyon too. And then the watchtower. You know, I've gone there for several years, and I introduced your cultural demonstration to my family, the Weavers. And, you know, us natives have a very strong spiritual connection to the Grand Canyon, but at the same time, I believe we kind of take it for granted. And seeing all those people from every walks of life that come and see the Grand Canyon and say, you know, that they're at awe with it. It really touched my heart when I always go there, and it makes me more appreciative of what we have in our backyard on the Navajo reservation.
So much for sharing, and that we all kind of take our backyard for granted sometimes. I know I've done it many times, but it's great that you can bring that appreciation back every time you come to do your demonstrations with us. And one thing I just wanted to mention for all our viewers, as Florence was talking about picking piñons, Many of you from national parks know that collecting things in the park is typically illegal, but here at Grand Canyon, we actually have a special regulations that allow people to continue this cultural practice and pick pinions in the fall. So it's a very lovely practice to be able to see people continue for generations. And I just wanted to think a little bit deeper into your history and your culture. Is there anything that you would like others to know or understand about Diné weaving or your culture in general?
Well, the Navajo weaving has always and always sustained the Navajo people. From the beginning, Navajo weaving was a clothing and blanket. We know with the chief's blanket designs and then the rug dresses that the Navajo ladies have started weaving way back in the 1800s when they started weaving. To this day, I do weave the rug dresses for not necessarily for wearing every day, but for graduations and weddings and ceremonies and things like that that they order from me, and I do custom orders on those rug dresses. So it has sustained the Navajo people from the time that they started to still now to this day.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's an important thing to think about is how it sustained you for keeping you warm and everything that you needed. And now it's still sustaining you, giving you a way to move economically up and support your family and take care of everything you need. So that's really great. The last question I would like to kind of ask, focusing on your time as weaving, is do you have a meaningful moment when you felt empowered or successful as a weaver?
Well, what is very meaningful for me when I first started to the time right now, what it has done for us as a family is my grandmother has very much encouraged me to learn to weave new things and to learn to weave new techniques and different designs and to weave big things. So she gave me her metal loom when she got kind of older, where she won't be able to weave bigger rugs. I think the very moment that I realized that something new and empowering on my weaving was going to happen is when back in 1999, there's a young lady that came to me and asked me if I could make a rug dress. And I asked my mother and my grandmother, but they didn't know how because they never weaved that. They only wove the regular rugs. So I went to the trading posts and I studied and studied and studied how it was made. And that's how it started. And rug dresses, if you would just see on my Facebook page, F.N. Riggs, Navajo Pictorial Designs, and go into my rug dress section, you will see some, not all of it, but some of the rug dresses that I've woven. It amazes me of what my hands have done to this day. It's there's a book in the called Spider Woman's Children. It talks about how a new revelation of rug dresses that the author shares about me. If you can see that book, you'll understand what they see of what I don't mean to brag about myself, but I just feel blessed that those things just came to me, and the techniques that I've practiced to learn, it has just all come together to this day.
I'm so glad you challenged yourself to try and bring back a tradition of those rug dresses. That's got to be amazing. So great job with that. The last thing I wanted to ask you is if you had any words of wisdom that you would like to share with any other artists or weavers.
What I would probably say is to just continue. Us weavers, as weavers, and even as silversmith, they have their own technique, their own personal design, and we all have our own driven, how do I say that, driven to just create. So just run with it. Just run with what you can do, because I realize that there's no limit if you run with it. Even with the vest that I do, that's something that amazes me, that it just comes together for me. So just run with it. Just do your own thing and let other weavers do their own thing. And let's just all create the vision that we have, just create.
You so much, Florence. Now, one thing that I'd like to ask you that's not directly towards weaving is kind of talking about the times we're all struggling to go through. These are really hard times that people are trying to navigate through during COVID. And so I just wanted to know if you might have any knowledge or experiences from yourself or generations before you who have gone through similar ordeals. Would you like to talk about any challenging times that the Diné people went through that enlighten us on the adversity of how they powered through those challenges?
Well, if you talk about Diné, you always think of the long walk. And even though our people struggled and had hardship, but the one thing that really I think about is their resilience. Of even though they went through that, but yet they still wove and did what they needed to do while they were in capture, and then bringing it all back and teaching their children from generation to generation. And then even this with COVID, and even with hard times for me, when I'm kind of struggling, and if I'm in a bad mood, or if I have some kind of a sorrow or mourning or something, that's the time that I kind of just put the loom down and just do what I need to do and let it pass. And then once it passes, and that's when I go back and then start, because I always want to put the positivity of my life into my loom. Because if you talk about the culture, and there's something they call a lifeline in some of these rugs, they do this When they're almost done, they do a lifeline. The color of the inside of the loom, they make a lifeline way on top. The meaning of that is to release yourself with whatever loom you were working with, to release yourself from that so you can go into your next rug with fresh mind and loosening everything that was in here in this rug and letting it go and go on into a new weaving. So that's the story behind the line that's in the rugs and some rugs that you see.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing, Florence, your advice and the history of weaving. It's been such a pleasure talking with you about all that. And I just wanted to give you one last opportunity. If there's anything that we didn't get to talk about today that you would like to share with the audience, you have the floor.
Okay, one thing that I would like to share is the picture right here. That's my mother, and this is my grandmother. What I've been blessed with from my weaving, I owe it to these two ladies. My grandmother was my biggest cheerleader. She has always encouraged me. Matter of fact, one time when she planned a birthday party for me, and I took these two ladies to go shop. And she bought a whole bunch of wool, not knowing that she was going to send it to me for my birthday. That is the kind of woman that my grandmother was. She would give you the material so that you would be able to weave many, many rugs. She had a whole laundry basket full of wool and warp that she gave to me for a birthday one year. So that I would like to share with everybody.
That's such a sweet story, Florence. And not only did she give you those materials to weave with, but the generational knowledge that she passed down from her grandparents and those that came before to your mother, and now you can pass on to many more. All right, and then if you would like to contact Florence,
you can contact me through email, or you can contact me through my Facebook message. My Facebook business page is F.N. Riggs Navajo Pictorial Rugs Design on Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I hope to have you back soon, Florence, because we missed you up at the Watchtower.
Oh, yes, we missed the Watchtower, and we can't wait to get back over there, too. Thank you, everyone.
And I'm so blessed that you've been able to share all of this today. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge, experiences, and skills with us today. And it is an honor to have you be a part of our cultural demonstration program. And we really appreciate your efforts in helping more people feel connected to Grand Canyon, its history, and its spirit. So thank you so much for joining us today.